right, let's talk about a real life example. A young man I was working with, Sanchez Anderson, he was in a ministry. He wanted to work with young men. He was working with the young men there. And he really wanted to make sure that they really understood that they were important to the world. And is that so needed in our day and age and what's happening in our communities today? So that's great that he wanted to do it. His vision was to help and have a really strong young men's ministry. So he pulled together and he was working with the men in his church. He wanted to put together, he wanted to make a positive impact. He wanted to have practical life skills for them and to share practical life skills, and he wanted to empower them to be productive and effective in the community. That was his vision. How was he going to get it done? He needed people, he needed resources, so he was able to work out of his church with the youth ministry. He had men that were coming alongside of him. And oftentimes in ministries, we just use whoever is available. But it's important to get people who really understand and are fitted for what you're doing. Don't just get warm bodies because there's some folks that just don't like young people. Let's just be real about it. I mean, they just would prefer not to be around them. You don't want those kind of resources working in a young men's ministry. You want men who know and understand the value of pouring in to young men so that they can take their rightful place in the community. So he reached out to those folks. He got the facilities, he got the resources, and it strengthened his vision and his message. He also needed to make sure there were people who were going to either have his same style or complement his style. And I mentioned earlier when we put Destiny Speak together and Edwina and I came together, we're not identical. We are not the same, but we complement each other and we even each other out. So as you're putting the resources together, that mission statement, how you're going to get it done, make sure you're putting people together so that when everybody's together, it makes a complete sentence, as you will. It makes a complete package. You don't want everyone the same because that's really not effective. But you want to make sure you have people who are going to be able to bring strength to the organization from their perspective that really help the vision come to life. He was able to really launch this successful young men's ministry. They taught them carpentry, they took them fishing, and my favorite project that they did, they had a dinner where they were able to take young ladies out and they showed them how to treat a young lady at a dinner. And I think that is just awesome because so often, hey, our young people just don't know how to act when they go to a restaurant, and it's because they're not trained, right? So he really showed those young men how to treat those young women really, really well, and it went off excellently. So again, he had a vision for a youth ministry, youth men's ministry. The mission was how he was going to put it together, do these various activities. He put the right resources together, the right facilities together, and he had a successful launch. Again, resource people and facilities are resources. So it's just not people, but it's also facilities. It's also tools. It's also equipment. It's also technology. It's also information. All of those are resources. Make sure you're engaged with the right resources and you're getting those right resources to your effort. Critical step number 2 is to define what's going to be success. Define what's going to help you be successful in that vision and mission that you identified. So that takes identifying goals, it takes identifying priorities and timelines. Because you can have many things that you want to do, but prioritize them because you want to do the most important thing first. Identify those goals. Here's another example. HP Visual Connections is an organization that works with independent artists. And they give them a platform in which to be able to share their music or their poetry or dance. And it gives them a platform where they can network and be able to vend or sell their products. It really also, most importantly, gives them a platform where they can build their confidence in sharing their gift with the world. So they had goals, and that's what they've been working with, but they also wanted to expand. So they worked with their priority, which is those independent artists, but they saw that they had opportunity beyond that market, beyond that target, to be able to do and impact the world even greater. So they began to look at authors, and authors saw the work that they were doing with these independent artists and said, hey, I need you to help me promote and market my business. I need you to help create a platform for me. Then there were businesses that said, I like what you're doing in the promotion and marketing field. Help me build my website. Help me build my social media platform. And then there were things where the business was coming back and saying, you know what? I need help in managing my business. The artists, the same thing. They do well what they do, but the business component of what they do, they were not being successful. So that gave HP Visual Connections an opportunity to branch out into virtual administration. And so they now serve also as a virtual administrator. See how that happened? They had the vision of helping independent artists. Out of that grew other people that wanted those same skills. And out of that grew, hey, I do well what I'm doing, but I need help in the administrative piece. And so now they have a virtual administrative component. So they kept the main thing, their goal to help those artists. And that was their primary goal. That was their priority. And they had a timeline to do that. They did that. And as they continue to step out on their vision, other things started growing into their vision. So again, as I said, if you have a vision, step out on it, start it, do something in that area, because there's greater even beyond what you see. We just get to see a little bit of it because we can't really handle all that would come with it. HP Visual Connection is a great example of how that happened. They identified, they defined their goal, and their priorities, and their timelines. So what I want you to do now is take some time just to write down the vision that you're seeing and write down your goals. And when we come back, we'll start to talk about more of what we need to do to take our vision to reality. All right, so hopefully you've written your vision down and you have your goals. What is it that you need to accomplish? And you're seeing it. Obviously, you don't have to share it with any of us, but if you want to, you can share it on our Facebook page and let us know what your vision and your goals are. Part of making it become a life and reality is to start saying it and being it. Share it with other people. Don't be afraid that somebody might steal your idea. They can't. It's yours. And remember, we talked about earlier that people are doing similar things, or it may seem like they're doing the same thing, but they cannot do what you've been called to do. So you've written down your goal, what you want to accomplish, what do you have to change to be able to experience that. Step 2 was the goals, the priorities, and making sure you identify those timelines. When do you want to do this? When do you want the vision to be realized? And again, prioritize. So you don't have to see the whole vision. You don't have to put a timeline for the whole vision if you don't want. Just put a timeline for that first priority. When do you want to deliver that first thing, right? All right. So our third critical step is to be able to plan. You have to plan for every goal. You have to plan the activities. You have to plan the task. You have to plan action and reaction and the cost, right? You have to plan all of that, because without planning, you're going to fail. You're going to fail. You can't just go from vision to doing. Plan for it. You also have to plan for the risk and then plan mitigation for the risk. So let's talk about that. If I am putting an organization together and our organization is going to be a bakery and we're going to sell cupcakes and we want to be the number one cupcake maker in our area, the risk could be that, I don't have enough material, or I don't have enough equipment, or, some of my batches might go bad. If I lose power, I can't really be able to operate, right? So you want to put mitigation plans in place for everything that you could think that goes wrong. Oftentimes, people don't want to think about the risk because they want to think everything's perfect, everything's going well. But reality is something can happen. What if you lose power and you have a big order for those cupcakes? Do you have a secondary place that you can go to make those fulfill that order? Do you have contingency in your contract that says that you can be able to deliver at a different point? There are different things that you want to be able to consider among your risk. Do you have, if you have a huge order, much larger than what you're normally used to fulfilling, do you have resources that you can bring in to help you fulfill that order? Think about the risk. Really, literally, think about what can go wrong. When I started in corporate and it was in insurance as an underwriter. And one of the things that underwriters do, we think about what could possibly go wrong with this exposure. What could go wrong in this building? And we really underwrite for that. We make sure people have the proper coverage in place for that exposure. So you, as a business owner, want to make sure you have proper mitigation plan for whatever could go wrong in your business. Again, if you're a videographer and you go out and shoot videos, do you have all the batteries? Do you have extra cords? Do you have equipment? If you're a vocalist and you sing, do you have, all your music? Do you have backup tracks? Do you have all the right equipment to do and perform appropriately? If you're a speaker, do I have a backup to, and I'm thinking I'm going to present on a PowerPoint, but do I have my speech in written form just in case the PowerPoint doesn't work, right? So again, make sure you mitigate for your risk. Plan, define, plan. So it's really, really taking you from ideation to accomplishment. It's really saying, I'm going from an idea to accomplishment because I've identified, I've defined, and I'm planning, right? You want to make sure I'm taking that idea and I'm really going to accomplish it. And taking these steps, you will really be able to do that. So that critical step number 3 is those goals, those activities and tasks, those costs and time. You're planning all that. Planning your goals, planning your activities and tasks, planning your costs and time and money, and planning those risks and that mitigation plan. Step number 4 is where everybody wants to go from step number 1, and that is to execute your plan. Communicate to your team. Communicate, communicate, communicate. I can't say that enough. Communicate, 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 because you need to know that your team knows where we're going, when we're going, and how we're going to get there. And communicate in detail. What's in your head is only in your head until you say it. You have to speak it. And sometimes what's in our head, until we speak it, we don't realize that it's really not clear. And so we have to keep speaking until it becomes clear to the receiver. Oftentimes, I find that leaders think, it's clear to me, so it should be clear to you. Yeah, no. If it's clear, it's not clear until it's clear to the person receiving the message. It's not clear until it's clear to your team who you're expecting to execute along with you. So speak it, say it, and keep talking until the folks that you want to make sure they're hearing you and ready to move with you hear and understand exactly what you are saying. Test for their understanding. Have them say it back to you. Have them say what it means to them in their roles, right? Because they won't say, you don't want to hear those same words coming back to you, but you want to hear your administrator say, this is what this means to me. Is that correct? And you can then say yes. You want to hear your technical person, your audio visual person say, this is what it means to me. And then you can confirm for them. You want to hear all of those people who are going to be working with you confirm, your team confirm, I hear your vision being this, I hear how you want us to do it, And this is what it means to me, and you can confirm. Communicate and get confirmation. As you're going along, you want to also adjust, monitor, and adjust what's happening. So in execution, you just don't say, okay, let's go. You need that time for go, and then you pull back and you have people say, you get them back at different points in time to say, okay, how are we doing? How are things going? And if they're not going the way you expected, or if they're not going the way you want it, you can always adjust. Remember, it's just a plan. It is not necessarily gospel. And in my mind, what I mean by that, gospel is truth. There's no changing it. So that's not what you're doing when you're bringing your vision to reality, because there are twists and there are turns that we don't anticipate. And they're not necessarily twists and turns that are bad. Twists and turns can get you to a perspective that you didn't even see, that has a greatness in front of it that you wouldn't anticipate it. So remember, execute, communicate, and plan.